What if I told you the UK economy is closer to total collapse than anyone dares to admit? Families are being squeezed like never before. Millions can't even afford their weekly groceries, let alone keep up with soaring energy bills. And as inflation spirals out of control, the question isn't if a crisis is coming, but how devastating it will be. 2025 is shaping up to be the year the cracks become unfixable. Imagine this. Interest rates are at record highs, turning dreams of home ownership into financial nightmares. Businesses are shutting their doors, crippled by debt they can no longer afford. And as the housing market begins to implode, experts warn this could rival the crash of 2008, but with even graver consequences. And that's just the beginning. The pound is plummeting, public debt is skyrocketing, and Brexit scars are still bleeding, leaving industries in disarray. But here's the most terrifying part. While these warning signs flash brighter and louder, few seem prepared for what's coming. In this video, we're exposing the 10 catastrophic reasons why the UK economy could crumble in 2025. From the hidden effects of global instability to the unspoken failures of leadership, we'll reveal the ticking time bombs threatening your job, your savings, and your future. Watch the complete video to the end, because this isn't just an economic story, it's a survival guide, and the clock is already ticking. Number 1, rising inflation. Imagine walking into a supermarket, picking up your usual groceries, and realizing that the same items cost double what they did just a few years ago. Sound far-fetched? This is the harsh reality for millions of families across the UK today. Inflation in the UK has surged to unprecedented levels, hitting rates not seen in over 4 decades. In 2025, the Consumer Price Index, CPI, climbed above 10%, making it one of the highest in Europe. But what's behind this relentless rise in prices? A combination of factors is driving this crisis, including global supply chain disruptions, skyrocketing energy costs, and the lingering effects of the pandemic. One of the biggest culprits is the surge in energy prices. The UK's dependence on imported energy, coupled with geopolitical tensions, has caused household bills to spike dramatically. Families are now spending a significant portion of their income just to keep the lights on and stay warm. But it doesn't stop there. The cost of basic necessities like food has skyrocketed due to disruptions in agricultural production and increased import costs. Many families are forced to make impossible choices, cutting back on essentials just to make ends meet. The impact of rising inflation is devastating. It erodes purchasing power, making everyday goods and services unaffordable for many. Worse still, wages have failed to keep up, leaving workers effectively poorer despite earning the same. If inflation continues unchecked, it could spiral into hyperinflation, where prices rise so rapidly that the economy becomes uncontrollable. This makes rising inflation not just a statistic, it's a ticking time bomb affecting every household in the UK. And this is just the first reason the UK economy is on the brink of collapse. Number 2, housing market collapse. What happens when the dream of owning a home turns into a nightmare? Across the UK, the housing market is teetering on the edge of collapse, and the fallout could be catastrophic. For years, the UK's housing market has been driven by rising property prices, creating a bubble that many feared would burst. In 2025, those fears are becoming reality. With skyrocketing interest rates making mortgages unaffordable and household incomes failing to keep up, demand for housing has plummeted. The result? Property values are starting to free fall in many areas, wiping out years of equity for homeowners. Those who bought at the market's peak are now facing negative equity, where their homes are worth less than the mortgages they owe. This creates a devastating cycle. Homeowners can't sell without incurring massive losses, and banks are left holding risky loans that could default at any moment. It's not just homeowners who are affected. Renters are feeling the pressure too. With landlords passing on higher costs, rent prices remain steep, even as wages stagnate. Many are struggling to keep a roof over their heads, creating a surge in evictions and homelessness. The knock-on effects of a housing market collapse could cripple the broader economy. Construction companies face bankruptcy as demand for new homes dries up. Retail and local businesses suffer as homeowners cut back on spending to manage debts. And financial institutions, already burdened by rising defaults, could be pushed to the brink. If the housing market completely unravels, it risks dragging the entire economy down with it. The question isn't whether this collapse will hurt the UK, it's how much damage it will cause. The housing market collapse is just one piece of the puzzle. With other economic challenges piling up, the UK's financial foundation looks shakier than ever. Number 3. Stagnant wages. What good is a paycheck when it buys less and less each year? While prices soar to record highs, wages in the UK have stayed eerily flat, leaving millions trapped in a financial vice. Over the past decade, the UK has faced a stagnation in wage growth, and in 2025, the gap between earnings and living costs is wider than ever. Despite inflation pushing the cost of living through the roof, most workers haven't seen meaningful pay raises. In fact, when adjusted for inflation, real wages have fallen, effectively making workers poorer. The reasons behind this crisis are as complex as they are alarming. Many businesses are struggling to survive in the current economic climate and can't afford to increase wages. Add to that the rise of gig economy jobs and zero-hour contracts, which offer little stability or opportunity for significant income growth. The result? Income inequality is deepening, with low and middle-income earners suffering the most. While the wealthiest may remain insulated, the majority of workers are finding it harder to make ends meet, even with full-time jobs. This stagnation doesn't just hurt individuals, it weakens the entire economy. With less disposable income, households are cutting back on spending, choking the very consumer-driven industries that drive economic growth. It's a vicious cycle. Low wages lead to less spending, which stifles businesses, further reducing their ability to pay competitive wages. If this trend continues, we could face a scenario where entire sectors of the workforce are left behind, fueling social unrest and economic instability. Stagnant wages aren't just a personal problem, they're a national crisis. And it's just one more reason the UK economy is hurtling toward a tipping point in 2025. The question is, how long can this imbalance hold? Number 4. Rising interest rates. Imagine watching your monthly bills double overnight, not because you spent more, but because borrowing costs have spiraled out of control. That's the harsh reality millions in the UK are facing, as interest rates climb to levels unseen in decades. In an attempt to tame inflation, the Bank of England has aggressively raised interest rates throughout 2024 and 2025. While this move aims to stabilise the economy, the ripple effects are proving devastating. Mortgage holders, especially those on variable rate plans, are now paying hundreds or even thousands more per month. For many families, this is simply unsustainable. It's not just homeowners feeling the squeeze. Small businesses, the backbone of the UK economy, are struggling to cope with rising borrowing costs. Many relied on loans to recover from the pandemic and are now finding those debts nearly impossible to manage. The result? A wave of closures, job losses, and economic stagnation. Even those who don't own homes or run businesses aren't immune. Higher interest rates have made personal loans, credit card debt, and car financing significantly more expensive. This means less disposable income, reduced consumer spending, and a deepening economic slowdown. The irony is that while rising rates are meant to cool inflation, they risk plunging the UK into a recession instead. Businesses cutting costs, individuals defaulting on loans, and reduced investments create a feedback loop of economic contraction. As borrowing becomes a luxury few can afford, the UK is left walking a tightrope. Too high rates could crush growth entirely, yet lowering them too soon could reignite inflation. Rising interest rates aren't just a short-term challenge, they're a long-term crisis with no easy solutions. This is yet another warning sign that the UK economy is heading toward an uncertain and dangerous future. Number 5. Decline in consumer spending. What happens when people stop spending? The heart of any economy, consumer confidence, has been shaken to its core, and the UK is now facing the chilling effects of a nationwide spending freeze. Consumer spending, which accounts for a significant portion of the UK's GDP, has plummeted in 2025. As inflation soars, wages stagnate, and borrowing costs rise, households are cutting back on everything from groceries to holidays. Retailers, restaurants, and service providers are feeling the pinch as fewer people can afford discretionary purchases. The numbers paint a grim picture. Major retail chains are reporting double-digit declines in sales, while hospitality venues struggle to attract customers even during peak seasons. Shopping centres and high streets, once bustling with activity, are eerily quiet. For many businesses, especially small and medium enterprises, this drop in spending is the final nail in the coffin. This sharp decline isn't just about high prices, it's about fear. Uncertainty about the future is driving families to save rather than spend, creating a self-reinforcing cycle of economic contraction. When people tighten their belts, businesses earn less, leading to layoffs and further weakening consumer confidence. The effects ripple outward. Tax revenues drop, straining public services, while struggling businesses reduce investment in growth. Even industries that were once stable, like entertainment and travel, are now grappling with dwindling demand. If consumer spending doesn't recover soon, the UK could face a prolonged recession, with deeper job losses and even more bankruptcies. The decline in consumer spending isn't just a symptom of economic trouble, it's a key driver of the crisis. And with no quick fix in sight, this is yet another sign that the UK economy is spiralling toward dangerous territory. The question is, how much longer can businesses and families hold on? We've poured countless hours into breaking down this critical topic for you. If you found it eye-opening, don't let it stop here. Hit that subscribe button with just one click to support us and drop a comment below. Which of these issues worries you the most and why? Let's start a conversation. Number 6. Post-Brexit challenges. Remember when Brexit was sold as a pathway to economic independence? Fast forward to 2025, and the UK is still grappling with the fallout of its split from the European Union. Fallout that's threatening to derail the entire economy. Brexit was meant to free the UK from restrictive EU regulations, but instead it has unleashed a wave of economic challenges that have proven difficult to overcome. One of the most visible effects is trade disruptions. With new customs checks, tariffs, and complex paperwork, businesses, especially small exporters, are struggling to navigate the new rules. Many have faced delays, increased costs, and lost international clients, leaving industries like manufacturing and agriculture in turmoil. Another pressing issue is labour shortages, particularly in sectors that relied heavily on EU workers, such as healthcare, hospitality, and agriculture. Post-Brexit immigration policies have made it harder to recruit skilled workers, leading to staff shortages that disrupt operations and drive up costs. For instance, farms across the UK have reported crops rotting in fields due to a lack of workers to harvest them. Supply chain disruptions are also wreaking havoc. Imports of essential goods, from medicine to machinery, face delays and price hikes due to bureaucratic red tape. This has compounded inflation and slowed down economic recovery efforts. Perhaps most critically, the UK's diminished access to the EU's single market has reduced its global competitiveness. Businesses that once thrived on European partnerships are now losing ground to rivals from other countries. The long-term effects of these challenges are stark. Slower economic growth, reduced investment, and diminished global influence. Post-Brexit challenges aren't just a policy issue. They're a key reason why the UK economy is on the brink of collapse. As the UK navigates this new era, It's clear that Brexit's promises of prosperity remain far out of reach. Instead, it's a lingering burden on an already fragile economy. Number 7. Public debt levels. How do you fix an economy when the government is drowning in debt? The UK's public debt has hit historic highs, and it's casting a long shadow over the nation's financial future. In 2025, the UK's debt-to-GDP ratio has surged past 100%, meaning the government owes more than the country produces in an entire year. Decades of borrowing, compounded by the costs of the pandemic and energy crises, have left the Treasury with limited room to manoeuvre. And with rising interest rates, the cost of servicing this debt is becoming unsustainable. This debt crisis isn't just numbers on a balance sheet. It's directly affecting lives. High debt levels mean the government has to either raise taxes or cut public spending. Essential services like healthcare, education, and infrastructure projects are being squeezed, leaving citizens to bear the brunt of the austerity measures. At the same time, borrowing to stimulate the economy has become a double-edged sword. The government risks pushing debt even higher, while cutting back risks stalling economic growth. It's a no-win situation, and the uncertainty surrounding it is causing businesses and investors to hold back, further weakening the economy. Public debt also leaves the UK vulnerable to external shocks. Whether it's a global recession, an energy crisis, or geopolitical tensions, any unexpected disruption could push the country into a full-blown economic meltdown. If this debt spiral isn't brought under control, future generations will bear the burden of higher taxes, reduced services, and diminished opportunities. Public debt isn't just a long-term problem. It's a crisis that's unfolding now. And as this mounting debt tightens its grip, it's becoming clear that the UK economy is running out of lifelines. Number 8. Weak pound. What if your money lost its value every time you spent it? That's the reality for the UK, as the pound continues to weaken, making everything from fuel to food more expensive for everyday citizens. In 2025, the British pound has hit some of its lowest levels in recent history against major currencies like the US dollar and the euro. While a weaker currency might benefit exporters, the UK's heavy reliance on imports makes this a net negative for the economy. Everyday essentials, from oil and gas to electronics and raw materials, now cost significantly more, further fueling the inflation crisis. This drop in the pound's value hasn't happened in isolation. It's the result of multiple factors: post-Brexit uncertainty, declining investor confidence, and a shrinking trade surplus. As global markets perceive the UK as a riskier investment, the demand for the pound falls, leading to even greater depreciation. The impact on households is immediate and painful. Fuel prices have surged due to the increased cost of imported oil, hitting families hard at the pump. Food prices have skyrocketed as the UK imports nearly half of its food supply, making even basic groceries a financial strain for many. Businesses, too, are suffering. Companies reliant on imported materials face ballooning costs, which are either passed on to consumers or absorbed as losses, threatening their survival. Meanwhile, international travellers and students are finding their money stretches far less abroad. The weak pound creates a vicious cycle. Higher import costs drive inflation, which erodes consumer confidence, further weakening the economy. The pound's decline isn't just a currency issue. It's a symptom of deeper structural problems that threaten the UK's stability. If the pound doesn't stabilise soon, the UK risks losing its global economic standing, and everyday citizens will continue to bear the brunt of the fallout. Number 9. Declining productivity. Why is the UK struggling to keep up with its global peers? The answer lies in a silent yet devastating issue: declining productivity. And it's dragging the economy down one unproductive day at a time. In 2025, the UK's productivity levels, a measure of how efficiently goods and services are produced, are among the lowest in the G7. This stagnation has persisted for over a decade, earning it the nickname the productivity puzzle. But make no mistake, This puzzle has very real consequences for the economy and everyday workers. The causes of this decline are multifaceted. A lack of investment in technology and innovation has left businesses reliant on outdated methods, while skill gaps in the workforce hinder growth in high-value industries. Compounding the issue, poor infrastructure, such as congested transport networks and slow broadband in rural areas, limits efficiency and innovation. The results are alarming. Low productivity means businesses produce less with the same amount of resources, which stifles growth and reduces profitability. This, in turn, keeps wages stagnant, perpetuating the cycle of low consumer spending and economic stagnation. The UK is falling behind its global competitors, losing out on trade opportunities and investment. On an individual level, declining productivity means workers are under more pressure to do more with less, leading to increased stress, burnout, and dissatisfaction. For businesses, it means shrinking margins, slower growth, and reduced global competitiveness. If this trend continues, the UK risks being left behind in the global economy, unable to compete in emerging industries like technology, green energy, and advanced manufacturing. Addressing the productivity crisis isn't just a necessity, it's critical to the UK's survival as an economic power. With productivity in free fall, the UK economy is losing momentum at an alarming rate, and the ripple effects could last for generations. Number 10. Global economic headwinds. What happens when the entire world becomes a storm you can't escape? The UK is facing relentless global economic headwinds that are making its domestic challenges even harder to overcome. In 2025, the global economy is fraught with crises, and the UK is feeling the brunt of it. From geopolitical tensions to lingering supply chain disruptions, external forces are pushing the UK economy to its limits. One of the biggest culprits is the ongoing energy crisis, driven by instability in global markets. With oil and gas prices remaining volatile, the UK, already reliant on imports, finds itself at the mercy of foreign suppliers. Meanwhile, trade wars and sanctions between major powers like the US, China, and Russia are disrupting international commerce. For the UK, which relies heavily on global trade, this means higher costs, delayed shipments, and reduced access to key markets. Post-Brexit trade deals have done little to shield the country from these challenges, leaving businesses scrambling to stay afloat. The effects of climate change are another growing concern. Unpredictable weather patterns have disrupted agriculture and infrastructure worldwide, leading to food shortages and soaring prices. For the UK, this means further strain on imports and domestic resources. Compounding these issues is the slowdown in global economic growth. As major economies like the US and China struggle with their own financial challenges, demand for UK exports is shrinking, hitting industries like manufacturing and services hard. These global headwinds create a vicious cycle. External pressures exacerbate internal weaknesses, from rising inflation to declining consumer confidence, making it harder for the UK to recover. The global economy doesn't operate in isolation, and the UK is increasingly vulnerable to forces beyond its control. With these challenges piling up, it's clear the UK economy isn't just battling domestic issues. It's caught in the crossfire of a volatile global landscape. With all these challenges piling up, it's easy to feel hopeless about the UK's economic future. But while the outlook is undeniably tough, history shows us that economies can recover from even the most dire situations. The UK has faced monumental crises before, from the financial meltdown of 2008 to the economic devastation of World War II, and it has always found a way to rebuild. The country's resilience lies in its capacity for adaptation and innovation. Whether through technological advancements, strategic reforms, or collective effort, solutions have always emerged to turn the tide. It's important to remember that challenges also present opportunities. While rising debt, inflation, and other issues seem overwhelming, they also force governments, businesses, and citizens to innovate and find new ways to thrive. The key lies in taking decisive action before the problems become unmanageable. While recovery won't happen overnight, progress is possible with the right combination of bold leadership, forward-thinking policies, and public cooperation. The UK's history of strength and perseverance should serve as a reminder that even in the darkest times, recovery is within reach. The question now isn't whether the UK can recover. It's whether we'll seize the opportunities to make that recovery stronger and more sustainable. The challenges facing the UK economy are daunting, but they're not insurmountable. To steer the nation away from collapse and toward recovery, bold and strategic solutions must be implemented across multiple fronts. First, addressing inflation is critical. The government and the Bank of England must strike a delicate balance between controlling inflation and maintaining economic growth. Investments in renewable energy and domestic production could help reduce dependency on volatile international markets, stabilizing prices in the long run. Second, wage growth needs to be a priority. By incentivizing industries to invest in their workforce through tax breaks and subsidies, the government can encourage fair pay increases that keep up with inflation. Simultaneously, raising the minimum wage and improving job security will help reduce inequality. Housing market reforms are also essential. Policies that promote affordable housing, such as capping rent increases and investing in new construction, can stabilise the market and provide relief for renters and homeowners alike. On the global stage, the UK must repair international trade relationships to mitigate post-Brexit fallout. Simplifying customs processes and renegotiating trade deals could help businesses regain their footing. At the same time, investing in technology and infrastructure will drive productivity and global competitiveness. Finally, the government must tackle public debt strategically by focusing on long-term growth initiatives rather than short-term austerity. Smart investments in green energy, education, and healthcare can spur economic development while building a more resilient economy. With decisive action and collective effort, the UK can not only weather this storm, but emerge stronger, more innovative, and more sustainable for the future. The solutions are clear. It's time to act. The UK economy is at a crossroads, and your thoughts matter. Which of these challenges do you believe is the most urgent to fix? Let us know in the comments. If you found this video valuable, check out our previous videos. We pour our heart and effort into making these for you, so please hit that subscribe button. It's just one click to support us and stay informed about the issues that truly matter.